Hey, John, are we on now?
Silence. This is weird. Does anybody got a watch in front of them? Do they know what time it is? Like
6:59. It's time to go.
6:59.
Not on the app yet, according to Mark.
Yeah, because it's going to be a minute behind.
All right. Well, let's begin. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Restoration Gathers tonight. Glad to have you with us. We talked about last week kind of changing gears a little bit with Restoration Gathers. We kind of gave you a schedule for the foreseeable future, what we're going to be doing. And tonight's going to be kind of a real live time. We are actually live right now. I'm with the other pastors who preach at Restoration Park Church. Of course, we got Randy, Wes, and Ethan. And then tomorrow night, we're going to have Ethan's study on Exodus. And then we have the marriage class, which I think is more for Randy than anybody else. Right, Randy?
Yeah, I need some help, man. This is gonna be, it's the only reason I'm doing it. I don't care if anybody joins. I just want to see my wife there.
So I'm
You gotta teach her a thing or two, right, Randy?
I'm sure this is helping.
She's not watching at all, is she?
Hi, babe. I love you so much.
My wife is great. I love my wife, by the way. She's awesome. No problems whatsoever. And then Thursday night, we're doing something with Wes as far as like kind of true worship. You're going to have some guys on from the worship team with you doing a couple of songs talking about worship. And then, of course, Friday, we're going to have a next gen with our children's and student pastor, Andrew Franzen, and also Kelly Berner on Friday. So tune into those as well. But we're glad to have you with us tonight. Like I said, this is real life time. What we have been doing has been recording these things kind of a day before. And the reason why we're doing that for is because we don't want these things to not function on the day we're going to show those. I know there's been a lot of, saturation on the servers and things have been going down. So we've been making sure the quality is high quality for you guys with this. But tonight we're trying something new. It's kind of real life time. With that being said, there's about a 1.5 to 2 minute delay with this. And so what we're asking you guys to do is to ask some questions, to us, some topics you want us to discuss with you guys. We'd love to hear from you. And so I want to kind of start a few things off with you guys. First off, thank you for joining us tonight on this. I'm looking forward to, this should be a lot of fun with you guys. I miss you guys, seeing you face to face. It's been a challenging 7 or 8 weeks for me. I know that for sure. I miss most of you. I miss you, Randy, and I miss you, Wes, Ethan. I like the fact that we don't see each other face to face, which has been kind of nice. But so
this helps you feel better about yourself when you don't have to look at me, right?
Pretty much. But this has been a challenging time for us, and we all preach sometimes on Sunday morning. And so, my first question to you guys: what has been the biggest challenge preaching on Sunday morning?
Well, I had to do it first, with almost no warning, right when this broke out. And I wondered if we were going to get a laugh track, because telling jokes in an empty room doesn't really work. So, and then of course, obviously there was the little hiccup where I had to run in the backstage, grab my Bible, but it's hard to preach to an empty room.
Well, you're not very funny anyway, so I'm sure your jokes fell flat anyway. So
it's true. I don't have your face to make people laugh. So.
And let's just stay right here. Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. This is going to be awesome. It's a Chad Groove show. Go, buddy.
Yeah. So how about you, Randy? What's been a challenge for you preaching on camera to nobody?
Trying to make my hair not look so gray. Actually, I was kind of taken back by that. I think my hair has gotten gray. Listen, I do not dye it. I've never dyed it. So if you have a bet on that, you lose. My beard came in completely gray. So I'm just aging. I would agree that preaching to an empty room is hard. I think Chad, you mentioned it yesterday in your sermon. All of us get energy off of the crowd. We have a great congregation, and it's good when people are engaged with us, and it's helpful. And so when the room is empty, man, it's just cold. And to be honest with you, you try to manufacture some of that energy or whatever, but it's just not the same at all. I would imagine, if this continues for a little bit longer, we'll all get better at it, more accustomed to it. But especially the first time was difficult.
What I hear in that is that Randy lives for the applause. I mean, he doesn't have it. He doesn't know what to do.
Randy probably would live for the applause, but he's never had any, so he doesn't know. So go ahead.
Is that a third person thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I got 3 words for you, just for men. Okay. So Randy, you did the Easter sermon outside. How hard was that?
That was very hard. It was emotional for one thing, but it was freezing cold. There is a line just south of where I grew up, and it's like going to Antarctica when you get north of it. It's always been like that. I used to drive up from Cincinnati, and I'd wear shorts, and I'd get home, and it was, snow on the ground. And so as we drove up there, it was a beautiful day, sun was shining, and man, soon, like 5 miles from that graveyard, it started snowing. Literally, it was snowing, and we're trying to set up camera, and I'm trying to, be comfortable in a sport jacket, and I'm sure all of you know the wind was howling, and I knew that it was going across a microphone because I could hear it across my ear, making all that noise, and kind of would miss the point for me to move any place else. And to be honest with you, it was one take, and we were out of there because we had to wait had to wait it out for a little while, wait out the snow. And Cindy had brought us some lunch, so we're sitting in a car in a snowstorm, eating lunch, waiting on an opportunity to get out in the grass. But
Well, you were looking pretty good, Randy. I have to say this. You had the shades and you had the white blazer on. People it was like you got like this. You had like this kind of 70s vibe. It's pretty sweet.
I appreciate you saying that, because that was a gray blazer, and so everything that was gray looked white, including my hair. So it's got these transition glasses, and so they go dark whenever I go outside. But yeah, well, thanks for the compliment. To hear Wes calling somebody cool looking, man, that's a compliment.
Yeah, well, first thing came from Chrissy, and then I saw somebody else on the feed where somebody mentioned something. I was like, man, Randy's styling. I was like, yeah.
I had a couple of text messages, Randy, about you looking like a mob boss.
That mob boss, that was it.
I got people.
And then Ron White as well too. I heard that one as well. So
heard that. Yeah.
That was good stuff. So Wes, how about you?
How about me? What? Preaching to an empty room?
Yeah.
Oh, it stinks, man. It's super hard. You try to imagine folks that you are really preaching to, but it's really tough. The whole message that I had to preach 2 weeks ago, I wanted to talk about, because there's all this funny stuff in the King James, about, you go back and the translations are all about your bowels and open up your bowels and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this would be really fun to be able to dive into this stuff, but you can't. I mean, I couldn't. Maybe somebody who's like really funny could do it, but not me. Like pull that off to an empty room, like making, there's like humorous stuff, but like trying to do jokes to a camera, just can't do it.
Yeah, it's really hard, man. I know, I like to feed off people's, kind of, if they're tracking with you a little bit, nodding their head or falling asleep in my case, so it's nice to see that. It's really hard to do that. So again, for those of you who have joined us online live right now, we are live time. And if you have any questions you want to ask us, feel free to type in below if you're on the app or the Facebook, and it'll be text to us, and we'll answer those questions as we get those. I was thinking about us four. We are a bunch of knuckleheads, and we like to have fun with one another. And I was thinking about our staff, and I am kind of biased. I think we have an incredible staff, at church. And if someone was to ask you to describe our staff, how would you describe our staff?
I would start out with liars, because you told us what you were going to ask us, and you have not asked us any of the things that you told us you would ask, and you made up this stuff.
So I'm a liar. Not the whole staff, though, right?
We like to have a lot of fun, but we're also really passionate and serious. I think one of the things I really love is that everybody takes our calling and really seriously at the church. I think everybody in their area really dives in 100%. But we aren't like, I don't know, we have a good time while we're doing it. And we have a lot of fun, and we're real. I think that's cool. Yep, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'd say it's a hardworking but fun-loving bunch. A lot of really different personalities that work well together. So, they complement each other in one way. Even when we run our mouths, we're really making fun of each other. But when it comes to getting the work done, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Everybody's very professional they take seriously what they're supposed to be doing. I've just full trust in everybody. I agree. We've got a terrific staff, and very talented people. People are gifted at what they do, and they do it. They use their gifts. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it for any that I know of.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun loving, and I think we take our faith very serious, but not ourselves very serious, which is, I think we're very raw and real and relevant, which I think is one of our strengths as a church, and I think about the four of us as preachers, we're all different, and we're unified as far as our messages go, which I think is very much a strength, of our church. And so I definitely agree with you, and we are fun loving, and I would say the four of us are very much kind of sports oriented. Wouldn't you agree, Wes?
Oh yeah, man. I'm a huge cricket fan. So I'm just waiting for you guys to get on the bus, Come on. Let's do it.
Wes, since you're our resident, stat guy for sports, we have an argument, but I think most of the staff gets tired of hearing, but I do have a serious question. Wes, this is for you. Who's the greatest of all time? Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron James?
Oh yeah. So you actually texted this question earlier, and so I've given it a lot of thought. I did a lot of research, Actually, no, I would say this. So there was a time when I was really actually pretty into watching professional basketball, and it was when the Blazers were really good. He had like Terry Porter and Clyde Drexler and Duckworth and like all those guys, and they would just be awesome. And then they would play the Bulls in the finals, and then they would just get completely wiped out. And Jordan was like a big part of that. So I had like a love-hate relationship with Jordan. Plus the shoes were super cool, but my parents never bought them for me. So it was always like a hard thing for me, So my relationship with Michael Jordan, but I used to have you remember the famous slam dunk contest photo with him? Yeah. I used to have that poster in my bedroom above my bed. It was pretty sweet. But anyway, so my relationship with Jordan has always been complex. It's like a love-hate thing. LeBron, I had no idea. Like, it's just a name, like, So I can't say anything about it. I mean, I know he's a dude and he's good at basketball. So if I'm gonna say between the two, I mean, I know that Jordan's legendary. But as far as who's a better basketball player, I don't have an opinion on.
That is fantastic, and I mean, the voice of reason has spoken, Randy. I mean, he just heard it right there. I mean, he knows the Portland Trailblazers. That was impressive, by the way, Wes, that you knew those players.
Oh, I watched it all the time. Like I said, it was fun watching them and watching. Back then, the Pistons were really good. Like Isaiah Thomas. So I know all that. So, but after I graduated high school, I was pretty much done.
Anybody else feel like that was a long talk for him just to end with? So I don't know.
I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm not completely like. It's like I do have some basketball knowledge, but it's way dated.
Yeah.
What I'm taking away from that is what he said. Jordan was kind of a part of those wins.
Yeah.
Well, what you heard him say was that Jordan was legendary and LeBron's just a name, which goes a long way. So
just wait.
I do think to Randy's defense, though, Randy did say something about Jordan maybe being more legendary, but he thinks that LeBron might be a superior player or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but I know he said something.
You were fine. You should have just stopped talking before that. I think you were good. You did a great job answering that. Very impressed. I think most people who were watching are impressed that you knew some of those players even, but
yeah, man,
ruining that answer right now, man. So, changing gears a little bit, for us, I'm just thinking about, as being a pastor and, following Christ in my own personal life. What has been some of the biggest challenges for you with the stay-at-home order? As far as your spiritual life goes, and I know for me, I love being around people, and I haven't been able to do that like I want to. But how is this stay-at-home order? How's it impacted your life and also your spiritual life?
It's not my turn. I just talked about all that basketball stuff, so now you guys got to do.
I guess I'll talk. For me, not seeing people is a big deal. I don't think I'm as extroverted as you, Chad. But doing ministry with people one-on-one is a big part of my life. It's a big part of how I relate to Christ himself is through other people. And being disconnected, just Zoom meetings and phone calls is kind of hard. And then also the lack of routine for a while. It really, I was trying to pray, I was trying to study, but it wasn't the same until I really buckled down and gave myself like a schedule. And, and that's good, but still, it's really, really hard when you're trying to, talk with people and fellowship with them or help them through a hard time. And all you can do is talk on the phone. That's a little bit of a challenge. So it's been difficult, but there've been good things, pushing through being at home alone because Shannon works all day down in Cincinnati. Kind of a dry time spiritually at the beginning, but pushing through that has led to a really good place for me personally, precisely by putting one foot in front of the other and just continuing. So that's sort of been my experience.
Yeah, I have a similar story. I think I have a very very regimented routine in the morning about what I have done, for my own spiritual care and physical care and all those kind of things, and all of it got blown up, completely blown up. Couldn't do any of it. And I've shared with a couple of different groups on these kind of meetings that my prayer time, my prayer discipline stuff in the morning has been so good for me, almost always. And almost as soon as this quarantine started, it just dried up. And I spent a significant length of time, in prayer and just getting nothing, not hearing anything at all from the Lord, and just this massive silence. It got, really frustrating. And I would say it's still not back to where it has been, but it's better now. But I kind of have a theory. For whatever reason, I just think that this whole thing has silenced our world. It's like God has just silenced. There's not anywhere near the noise. I've seen a couple things like the earth itself is quieter. It doesn't rumble because there's not as much activity. I didn't know it rumbled before but now it's not. I just saw the other day that the decibel for birds has increased. It's like they know that they can be heard now. So I don't know what's going on. I can't figure it out, but it's just an observation. Like God has just kind of let everything grow silent, and I trust him in that. And I think it's probably a good thing in the long run. And so, we don't talk to people as much. We don't see each other as much. Obviously, it's just there's a lot more silence in my world, and I'm going to try and make the best of that and see what he's up to.
Yeah, for me during the stay-at-home order, it's really exposed my lack of self-discipline. You know, as a staff, we met together every morning at like 9:15, have a prayer time together. I had my routines, and I felt like I was more productive, coming into the office and doing those things. And it's been a real challenge for me to be disciplined, on this. My prayer life has suffered, in some ways from this. It came a little bit more naturally for me when we were, in the office and doing those things. And it's been a real challenge for me to be able to really focus my time in prayer, and even studying and reading scripture. It's been hard to concentrate. It's been hard to focus. And I've really had a hard time doing it. I've had to really kind of reset my own schedule, at home. And I'll get in my car sometimes and just drive around the neighborhood. And that's my prayer time, doing that to kind of get me out of my, house, and focused on that. But it's, for me personally, it's been a drier season than I thought it was going to be for me, to be honest with you. You know, and what I've been able to do, on a productive side, is because I'm home more, I'm working in my yard more. And I had a question come through here from Tracy Wilson, which I don't really want to say it because it's not very nice, but she said, "Chad, can you coordinate a bonfire? Someone needs to be in charge of the lighter." Those of you know what that actually means is I was burning brush about a week ago, and the wind changed and burned off most of my hair and some of my eyebrow and some of my ear hair, which actually is a blessing. God's sense of humor. I got hair growing in other places now that never did, my ear, my nose, my back. And so my ear hair's gone, which is actually kind of a blessing with that. So thank you, Tracy Wilson, for your kind question. I appreciate that. So Wes, what about you, man?
The question was the challenges or
Yeah, I mean, just being at home, the stay-at-home stuff, has it been a challenge to your spiritual life, your walk with Christ? Has that been a challenge? Has it been impacted positively or negatively by that?
I would say that it might sound kind of weird, but my own disciplines, spiritual disciplines, kind of just fell apart because they were part of my routine. And so there was a lot of sort of like scrambling about, and frustration with myself, and a lot of that. But I have to say that it's been illuminating. Like, it's revealed to me how much of my own spiritual life was part of my, how do I say it, like my to-do list, and once my to-do list was taken away, and those disciplines kind of like fell apart, and I began to realize sort of how do I say it, how much weaker I really am than what I really thought I was. And to me, that has probably for like through 2 or 3 weeks, I've been going back and forth about it, because part of me is like really disappointed in myself. But then I start to realize, like, I think God's teaching me something through it. How much of my relationship with Him has been dependent upon what I'm doing. And learning to really trust, like, He's unchanging. So how can I start to lean on Him more than just do stuff? You know what I mean? How can I trust Him more than just making sure I'm doing my part, or what I think should be my part? And so I'm kind of getting to a point where I feel like I'm getting beyond the frustration and the being self-criticism about myself, and starting to try to allow Him to teach me something through my weakness. And that's starting to come through. I'm beating myself up less about not being as vigilant and awesome. Like I tell myself, like what I do is, well, I have this time now, and I have all this. There's this quiet, and there's all this. I should be here, you know, but I'm only here, and I should be closer than I really am. And then I beat myself up over it, and then it's like, what is this about? Is this really just about me and how far I can get? Like, so I think the Lord's teaching me something really important. It's probably not just me too. Like how much of our lives as 21st century Americans are built around what we can do, what we can accomplish. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're not going to be able to do that much. And so we have to relearn, right? We have to relearn what we're about. We have to relearn what our life is about. And you know, I think I'm learning a little bit. So I think it's been a good thing. It's hard. It's really been hard, but I think it's a good thing. Like the Lord's showing something here about showing me stuff. So.
Yeah, that's well said. You know, I think you're right, Wes. I think there's a lot of people that are like us that are experiencing the kind of same kind of things. And so, you know, my question for you guys would be, what can you give the people who are listening right now as encouragement? Because it can be a little frustrating, like you said, Wes, and I know I felt that. I know you have too, Ethan and Randy. You felt some discouragement and frustration, and you're critical of yourself. I should be here, but I'm not there. I'm down here. I should be up here. You know, what kind of encouragements would you give to people who are listening tonight?
I'm just a quick word, just because it's on my mind, and then I'll let you guys share. You know, our life with Christ ultimately is about, I think, losing that control over our own spiritual growth, and learning to realize that He is more present. He is as present in our weakness as He is in our strength, and learning to see that. And so I think that if that weakness has been revealed to us, then that itself, like, own it. Don't run away from it. Own it. This is my weakness. I do this. Lord, show me who you are in this, in my weakness this way. And then all of a sudden, it's all that stuff that we learned from the Apostle Paul, that in this weakness, not once we get over our weakness, but in our weakness, His power is made full that way. Is perfected in that way. So
It's good.
Well, if I could riff off a lot of what Wes just said there, I had a conversation with Shannon yesterday about, why does God desire a broken heart, right? A broken heart I have desired. And, it's not so much I think God wants to break our hearts, it's that our hearts are broken. And for the most part, we don't pay attention to it. And I think, a situation like this where you're at home and we feel like we should be, we have all this time, we should be on this sort of spiritual high. And we kind of come face to face with the fact that we're just brokenhearted people who can do nothing of ourselves. And that throws us back on Him. And we know when we know where we're at, we can see where to go. And if we can get past the self-judgment in this, then we can, see where we're at in these frustrations. We can have a broken heart over the fact that, I can do nothing of myself. And that's demonstrated to me when all I have to do is, say my prayers and watch Netflix, and I'm even stumbling with that. It doesn't have to be self-judgment. What it can do is open my eyes to how much I need Him and recognize He's here for me, right? He's still giving His life to me, even in that. And it can be an occasion to recognize the sort of wild grace of God that we have in Christ. Because I would say, as the spiritual formation pastor, and I'm always trying to get people to build these disciplines and these habits, but there's a real danger in that, to start thinking it's about what I do. And I think sometimes God draws away, or He lets us struggle a fair amount, precisely so we can remember, like, yeah, we do those things, but really it's all about leaning on Him.
Yeah, I would say just the recognition of how little control we have over anything, including our spiritual development. Um, it doesn't mean, that we shouldn't, that we should just, quit and give up or whatever like that. But this whole thing has shown me how little control I have about all of us have plans and ideas and strategy, even as a church, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And just in a second, it's all control is gone. And so for me, it's so humbling to know that I have no control. I mean, there's stuff that I'd like to fix with family, with friends, with myself, with my life, with the church, and we are not in control. And the recognition is that he is, I just was talking about the silence. I'm thinking about between the Old and New Testament, nobody heard from God for 400 years. Are you kidding me? How many generations of people just disappeared, without any kind of word from the Lord, So for me, I think I would encourage people to just recognize that you're not in control, and He is in so many ways, and to rest in that, and that's okay. Like I said, I think He's being silent in a lot of people's lives. And nobody likes it. I don't like that. I'm always for anything I do, I want to hear from him. And he's just silent right now. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that. And the way to approach it is to embrace it.
Yeah, for me, sometimes I make my faith kind of like an equation. And what I mean by an equation is, I do a certain thing, plus God equals this kind of outcome, like I'm trying to force, him in my life, or force growth to happen in my life. And, in this dry season that I'm kind of experiencing myself, like Wes said, you guys have all said, really, I have little to no control over that. And that's hard for people like me. I'm goal driven. I'm goal driven, event driven. What's next for me? I got to do this to get better at this. And I mean, God's really slowing me down, which is really, that's been really painful, honestly, because I am event driven and I want to do a lot of stuff. And He has been kind of quiet in my life, but I think it's just that reminder that, He's the one that is in control. He controls my growth, and all I can do is lean on Him. All I can do is continue to press into His life and do that. And sometimes it's discouraging. I'm gonna be honest. We want to experience His presence in our life. And I've had many experiences in my walk where He's revealed Himself in powerful ways, and um, but it's trusting and just leaning in on Him and allowing His Spirit to do what Spirit's going to do in me, and not trying to have expectation of what's going to look like, but just continue to give myself over to Him. And I think it's for my encouragement to people is just to persevere. It's doing the right thing, even though it doesn't feel right sometimes. It's continuing to do the right thing and be patient in that and allow Him to do His work, in us. And that's what I would tell people, because it doesn't always feel right. And I think our feelings can kind of dictate or, frustrate us. And I think we talked to Sylvia Bunta before. He told me this. He goes, feelings are very dangerous, because feelings don't dictate what's the truth of the situation, And so just kind of letting those feelings not control, what how I see God in my own spiritual life, in that. So, hey guys, I got a question from Stephen Taylor, and he's kind of a mini version. He's a much smaller version than of who I am. And so the question he asked, you guys, is when you get to heaven, first question you will ask. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, not it.
Wow, that's a tough one, man.
It's a tough one.
Is who's the greatest basketball player of all time off the table because we already discussed this?
Well, I think God's going to say Michael Jordan probably. So it's already been established.
He'll probably ask LeBron what he thinks.
Yeah, that's a hard question. You know, you have to be honest.
Why did he make mosquitoes?
Go ahead, Randy.
I just said, why did he make mosquitoes?
Or stink bugs. What's the deal with stink bugs?
Or Chad Group. What's the deal with Chad Group?
I think our show has ended.
Thanks, Stephen. That's a hard question to answer. I have no idea. I have no idea what I would ask. You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna cop out and say I want to spend about the first 1,000 years or so just falling down and worshiping him. You know, my expectation of being in his presence is not so much that I got this load of questions that I need to have answered, and I'm not, you know, capping on you at all, Stephen, but I think my place is going to be very, very different. My position is going to be very, very different. I I have a worshiper's heart, and the idea of actually being in his presence, whatever that is like, man, it's just, I'm going to be just stoned right there for centuries, you know. That I may, you know, be on my nose. I may have my hands up in the air. I don't know, but just to be in his presence, I get a little teary eyed right now just thinking about that. Man, you know, what an honor we have coming. What an honor to be in the presence of God. And I'm sure he'll field questions, so I'll let you guys figure out what those are. But at this point, I don't want to ask him questions.
What he said. That's my answer too. That's good. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't really, I don't know the answer to this, but the way I imagine it, like, is that once we see him face to face, like, all questions will be answered. Like, I really don't see. I mean, that's the way I imagine it. It's like there's no need for him to give a verbal response. Like, we will know.
Yeah.
And it's sort of anything else seems to me to be like, if I have an intellectual question, because I got lots of intellectual questions. I got a lot of like, why this, why that. But it's one of those things like where once you really know somebody, those questions disappear. Yeah. You know, because you truly know who they are, and if there's no separation, if there's every obstacle is been taken away, every veil has been lifted. I think every answer will be just given in his presence. I don't know. That's the way I imagine it to me.
That was a good answer too.
We're good. We're really good.
But I could be totally wrong.
Totally blew up his question, and we came off sounding pretty good.
So one more thing before we end tonight, and that's about the church. Just real quick. You know, I was just thinking about the fact that we haven't been together. Has it been 7 weeks now, or has it been 8 weeks? And it's been a challenge not being together. I know a lot of people are missing the fact that we can't be together, you know, face to face. But just to be positive about this, what has been some of the blessings during these last 7 weeks? What have we learned about the church these last 7 weeks? That makes sense what I'm asking? For me, I'll just start. For so long we were so focused on, Sunday morning, making sure we pull off a really fantastic Sunday morning. And there's a lot of value in that. And we've talked for years, guys, about not just being a Sunday only church. We've lost a lot of time over the last decade or so, the church has. And, for me, the blessing has been the fact that we have more time back. The Restoration Gatherers has been great. We've been able to connect with people throughout the week. And I see us, seeing the value of focusing on our spiritual life a lot more, not just on a Sunday thing, just checking the box off, but actually engaging in Him throughout the week a bit more. That's been a really, really good thing. And I think also we've really recognized that church really isn't a building, right? Church is so much bigger than that. And it's been pretty cool to kind of see that, witness that, slow us down a little bit, from that.
One of the things that I've just had angst about it, I guess, is where are our people and what are they like? What's happening with them spiritually? Where's their faith and all that kind of thing. And I get some indication from that with, and of course, just like if we were not in quarantine, people have issues, and I know all of us have had some phone calls with folks, trying to help them through some things. But I would say I feel really supported by our church in a number of ways. I know we've all made an effort to try to connect with people and make sure they're doing okay. And I've gotten some of those from our church people. I'm sure you guys have too, which is like really cool. They care about us, and financially, we're okay. Offerings have been down, a percentage, but we're still paying our bills and you know what I mean? People, you just wonder, like, we're not even meeting. Does anybody even know that RPC exists anymore? Are people watching the things that we're doing online or not? And so I'm really thankful for the people of the church, because like I said, I feel like they're nobody's faith is waning. They're not falling away. We've had people call us and say, we want to help someone. We can help. How can we help? Which is just so dynamic in my mind. Like, people are recognizing that we're the people of Christ. And even if we can't get together, that doesn't change that fact. We're followers of Him, and we're going to live like He's told us to live. I'm really thrilled by seeing that. So thank you, RPC. You guys are awesome. Love you. Love you. Absolutely love you.
I'm sure you guys have had to go down to the church a few times over the last few weeks. I was just down there. I think it was yesterday, and it's weird to walk into those buildings and everything to be turned off and all of that. And you drive into the parking lot, and it feels, it almost feels like some kind of apocalyptic movie or something like this. And anyway, my wife and I were talking about it on the way, driving off campus there. And it's like, you realize that, the buildings, they're just buildings. It's just stone and metal, and, it's the life of the people that, and that's really, and it's almost, when you go into those buildings right now, the way they currently are. Chad, looks like you're there right now.
I am.
Yeah, that becomes more prominent. You really grasp the fact that it's the spirit of the church and the connection, the fellowship, and the way that life is shared and faith is shared between the people, between all of us. That's the life of the church, and that becomes so much more striking when you have to go into that empty building and pick this up and do that. It's just a reminder that I know we feel disconnected, and I know that there's this sense of isolation and disconnection, all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's this real sense, I think, that when you see something like that, it's like, man, it's really, it's all of us together, striving in faith and worshiping the Lord and communing together and just sharing life together as well. Like that's the heart of it. You know what I mean? That's what I want to get back to. And we will, you know, in the Lord's timing. But yeah, that was very, I learned that. Yeah. Reminded of it anyway.
I guess for me, I'm excited about possibilities upcoming, and like I'm gonna try to tape my first Bible study using Zoom and sharing screens, and if that goes well, that would actually open up possibilities to sort of multiply our attempts to have Bible studies throughout the church, and that's a cool thing because the way it is now, it's hard to get people to show up at church because there are things going on. The church is a ways away from people. So if this causes a culture shift where we have a stack of Bible studies that people in their small groups can get into that the pastors are putting together, and there's more spiritual education, that would be a really cool thing. If this would actually force us to develop the skills and the means to do that. What I'm appreciating is how much I feel, and when I talk to people, the desire to get back together, it's almost like being apart has revealed the fact that we are a family, right? That's not just something we say. We don't just all like the same type of worship music or what have you. Like the desire that sort of come to the surface to get back together reveals what a tightly